My biggest takeaway podcast.
All right, Mr. Matt Vincent. Dude, I appreciate you coming on here, man. I know you have a pretty amazing message. I've heard you able to speak about it in person. You know, we talked over this probably the last, 2 years? I guess we met at Cookie Fest.
Yeah, it would have been
That
our kind
weird?
of first
Yeah.
cross pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Learned a lot. And I know we've got to become closer. We've got to do some stuff together. Hell, even work together, learn the ins and outs about what all you do. Dude, I think you got a really great message, and I want to share it with the world, man. So, or at least whoever's going to be listening to my tiny podcast here.
That's it, man. That's happy to help, happy to share, happy to talk about what I've done, how I got here, and what we're currently trying to figure out and keep growing.
Yeah, man. So your background's pretty interesting. I find that a lot of people come from different places, but you actually came from the Highland Games. Right?
Yeah.
And so, in a nutshell, for those who don't know what that is, what is that besides just skirts and tall socks?
So it's historically, right? Like what the Highland Games came about, it's a 700-year-old sport that the Scots did called heavy athletics is how they refer to it. And what it was when the English had disarmed the Scots, taken all their weapons, the clans would still get together and have these gatherings and festivals and figure out a way to compete as, well, men do. And so they would compete in various things, most of which using farm equipment. So like the weights you throw for a distance in the Scottish Highland Games originated from being counterweights for measuring grain. The hammers are hammers that they used for smashing posts into the ground. Stones are stones. And, the sheaf is, lobbing bales of hay up into a hayloft.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything started that way as kind of a way to still stay fit, stay capable, and stay battle ready without being able to train for war.
I think and also to a little bit of ego testing and putting.
Yeah, of course, right? Like, I think there should be those kind of rites of passage within culture. For me, that's one of those things that I was interested the most with strongman, and getting over to Iceland or any of it was getting a chance to put my hands on some of those stones that have been those tests for men over the course of a few millennia and kind of see where you stack up.
Well, that's actually leads me to an interesting question that's popped in my head. What makes a man a man?
Testicles, part of it, but even then's a little sketchy now. I don't know. And I kind of dig that the further we're getting into self-actualization, that line gets blurry. Because I know what we attribute to being a man are masculine traits. They don't have anything to do with the gender part. Mm-hmm. So all those masculine traits to me are the, choosing to walk toward the fire, that ability to kind of press forward toward discomfort and ignore the little voice in your head. That being able to perform when it counts and deal with whatever needs to be done on the backside of it. I've always thought of men to me as being capable. That's the term I would use. I've always been really impressed by capable men. People that are accountable and count on themselves, aren't looking for permission, and know who they are. That's kind of what I see.
That's interesting. I like the word capable because it's it rings very true, but it's also so vague at the same time.
Because
you get to define what capable is, but at the same time, it's not so much can you do it, because you can do it. It's just, are you going to go after that calling of whatever that task or adventure might be?
Right. How often is it, right? I think there's a good line in Jay Shetty's book where he's talking about think like a monk, and he's talking about living at this monastery for this period of time. And one of the guys he meets can recite so many lines of this book. And he's like, oh man, that's incredible. I wish I could do that. And the monk says, well, do you wish you had the skill, or do you wish you gained the knowledge? Because gaining the knowledge takes a decade. So which one is it you want? Because saying that you want to go down that path that's what it looks like. Like it takes time to acquire those things, not just be able to spout them off phonetically.
What was your biggest takeaway from the Highland Games and their experience?
I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was. Like I was a very average Division I athlete. I was a very average strongman and very average weightlifter, very average powerlifter. And as I kind of was able to put all the skills that I had learned from those things, plus the collegiate athletics, and I'd found greatness. And so, if I don't explore that weird thing, right? Like I found my greatness in a 700-year-old sport from Scotland. It didn't find me in Louisiana.
Sure.
So how many times, if I'm not looking, am I going to skip over something that I could have possibly been great at? So I look at that now as a freedom to try stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've tried a lot, right?
Tried a lot of things. Yeah. I'm a bit of an experienced guy. I like it, right? I think all those things shape us. I think that's what I realized. I mean, the other side of what I realized with the Highland Games is how to really delay gratification, how to show up every day, be really consistent. And one of the side things that I really learned from it now looking back is because the Highland Games is weird in the fact that like there's bodybuilding and powerlifting gyms. Mm-hmm. There's not any Highland Game gyms that really anyone's getting together and train at. So like the top 20 of us in the world, all of us train by ourselves in garages and in fields by ourselves.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of solo time there, man, to show up and be by yourself and be like, do you want this? Cause no one else gives a shit.
Right. Right. It really is testing your discipline and fortitude for that sport.
And I know that I've got
ego shown
that,
where you can just show up to the gym and do your thing because you can't test it against your peers until you show up to the game.
Until we get to competition.
Right.
Right. And so that makes the going out to the field by myself and going to do those things now is this takeaway of like, I can show up and put in the effort and the intention to move the needle every day 1 degree. And like, that's all I got to do long-term. As long as I don't quit, I win. Mm-hmm. And win isn't against anyone else.
Sure.
Win is me getting to where I want to go and further into the journey.
Well, as you went down that journey, it led to injury, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I had tore an ACL in college at LSU, got it fixed, and was back competing. I threw a PR in the shot put. I don't know why I said PR that way. I threw a PR in the shot put 93 days after my ACL surgery. I don't know if that's recommended or not, but here we are.
But
yeah, right. But you're fucking 20. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
You're indestructible, basically, at that point.
So, and I think this is an interesting piece because I've gotten to know you on a personal level, and hopefully we can dive into it because I think it's really important for people to hear. You said that the Highland Games help you find greatness. I don't know if the Highland Games, what made you who you are today. I think your injury did.
I think a big part of it, right? But I also don't think I get exposed to the tools to get me out of that dark without what I learned from the Highland Games.
Because you went into a dark place, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, on a couple different levels. It was, I really thought going into that sport, I was pretty prepared for when the time would come, I wouldn't compete anymore.
As all athletes think we are.
As we all are, right? Because look, high school football ended and college sports ended. Like I'm used to things coming to an end.
Yeah.
My bike shop ended, right? I was never prepared that my body wouldn't work. That's where shit got squirrely for me. I wasn't ever prepared to not be athletic. And like through that darkness, when I'm being able to look back at what I had done with the sport, and look, I love throwing. I love that sport. I never had to talk myself to go train.
Sure.
I love it. And I would still do it if I was healthy enough.
Sure.
But essentially, I spent 20 years developing mastery of a thing that I can't do at all anymore.
You know what? I don't think that it's something that you can't do. You just can't do it at the level you want to. You'd rather just not do it.
I don't think I could do it full speed.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
right? Like I'm not saying that I could throw as far as I could have.
Yeah.
Because no fucking way. But throwing half speed feels bad.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
You know, and I find it dangerous.
Yeah. And I can relate to this very heavily because as a guy that did bodybuilding, you know, 260 pounds, I'm currently like 218 just for reference. So we're talking 40 pounds of meat. And man, when I tore my pec in jiu-jitsu, which somewhat infuriates me because, you know, you lift all this heavy weight where you're 300, 400, 500 pounds every single week, every day. And then you're wrestling and you tear a pec.
Well, yeah, man, it's really good at moving that 400 or 500 pounds in a very, very specific controlled manner.
One plane.
That's it.
Dude, I went to a dark place.
Yeah.
Like depression, broke up with the girl I was with. We quit my job, moved from New York to Alabama again. I was like, I got to reset. Like I left everything. And, you know, I thought like my entire identity was gone of who I was. Right. And we build identities based off of our past, or I built mine based off insecurities. Right. It was the only thing that got me attention and made me feel like I was enough. So I put so much into it to where like, I still eat rubbermaid containers. Right. You've seen me do that.
Yeah.
And like, I just pound the pavement on just being the best that I could be. And I realized like, oh, I'm never going to be that guy again. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think actually we had a conversation. He's like, well, no, you're just still that you're that same dude. It just looks different.
Yeah. Disassociating from that identity. Right. Cause that's where I looked at mine. And when I got kind of more aware of things was that all of this self-confidence, this belief, this ability to perform when it counts, the delay gratification, the ability to do that, the ability to not let the negative like coach voice in my head beat me up and like beat down my spirit. Like I can hear that voice and just use the fire from it. Like I'm all right with being mean to me. That voice I've done well with for a really, really long time. I don't allow it to be the only voice anymore because that part gets tricky.
Yeah.
But, you know, all that skill comes from how fortunate I was to be dropped in this working machine. And when that machine quit working, I'm like, oh shit. If I was born slightly different, not as athletic, not any of the things, I'm not self-confident. And I don't have these things. And I looked at that and I was like, fuck. How do other people get those when they don't have this other part? Because if I didn't have that athletic, I'm not me. And so being able to use that tool and realize what it exposed for me now that I can't do the thing doesn't make any of the lessons less valuable.
Right.
Because what I can see now is I can make long-term progress at anything I put my sights on. In the same way, if I want to make progress in the gym or training, right? Like I've got to remove some of my ego from what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And just collect data and make a decision. We don't ever have a problem with that, putting my emotion into like, if someone says, hey, you should open up your stance and your squat a half step. I'm not like, well, my father said squatting's this way. And when I was 12, I was congratulated. And then these people told me I was always too narrow of a squatter. And like, you wouldn't do that. You would just try. But we build in so much attachment and emotional attachment around these other things, these identities that we think we are and how we act. And we don't give ourselves any freedom to continue to explore and try new things and get the experience before you have an assumption around what this is going to mean. And somehow, if I change my mind, I now am creating a liar of my past self, which is great. I plan to on a regular basis.
You said something a minute ago that I want to tap into. And you said how you speak to yourself in that voice. You said, now it's not the only thing that I listen to. And I know now that you help coach people essentially through a lot of these things, what is your, how do I word that? What did you do to let another voice in besides you just being so hard on ourselves? Because I often find that people that are driven are the hardest on themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like,
well, that's the only way it works. Like if you're driven, you are.
right. And so it's just a characteristic that comes with it, right? Because you strive for success. And I heard on another podcast that you have, like, anybody that has built something great has had to go through some type of trauma to prove either somebody else or themselves or something to give them the umph to push and go against the grain and create something.
Yep.
So you had to go through some type of trauma to do so. But I also think there's a fine line between achieving it and saying I did it. And then also, like, you know, and I want to dive into your methodology here on how do we listen or let our body actually start to listen to that other positive voice versus only the one that says you could do better. Yeah, that was great, but we could have done another 3 feet. We could have worked another 30 minutes. We could have pushed a little bit harder. Like, how do we get that other voice to start listening?
So that mindset, it takes practice like anything else. And we're so used to letting that other voice win, right? Like I started thinking about this a lot this past weekend with our men's retreat that was in town. And if you're a high performer, like you're going to be mean to yourself. That's one of the ways it works. Like you're demanding of yourself. You're going to say worse shit to you than you would ever tolerate from anyone else. And that's, if anyone else can figure out how to make that go away, let me know. I haven't mastered getting it to go away, but I can also choose to accept the other side of the coin, right? Like one of those things I love most about Alex Hormozy is this simple idea of, you're not who you say you are a stack of the evidence that proves who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thank yous and the nice voice for me is the one that's being able to look backward at what we have accomplished. Every time we have shown up, every time that we did step forward, every time we got our ass kicked and still got back to try the next day. Like that's the evidence I thank myself for, right? Like that's where I start being nice to myself to remind myself, quit catastrophizing. We're going to survive. We're going to be able to continue to push forward. Everything from every day behind us proves this true. And so using that voice as a counterbalance, right? Because like, I know I'm going to be shitty to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I only have that voice in my head, it'll constantly keep me in the gap. Great book, Gap in the Gain, kind of goes over this on full depth, but essentially so often high performers, driven people or anything live in this gap. And that gap is constantly this distance from where we currently are to this make-believe point that we think we're supposed to already be at, based on comparison and what we've seen other people do and other people's journeys and stories, that we should be here already. But the truth is the actions you've taken have gotten you here.
What do you think the number one characteristic between all high achievers is?
Accountability.
I was going to say taking action.
Same. That, if you're not going to do it, no one's going to do it for you.
Mm.
Ain't nobody missing that meal. Ain't nobody prepping that food. Ain't anybody going to the gym and doing the extra sets. Isn't anybody else getting up here at 5 a.m.? No one's sitting in the sauna with me listening to those books. So I have ideas and better things to talk about, better ways to express myself. No one's doing that. It's accountability.
Yeah. And I also think, I can see that. I think my biggest piece is that I know so many people, and I bet you a lot of people listening to this, read the books, watch the videos, do all the things, but don't do nothing with it.
Right. And that's the other part.
That's the fear piece of like, well, when I get here, I'm going to do this. It's that if and when that holds you back from actually taking the leap. And it's simply because of just fear. As I know damn well when I started, wow, I'm just a country bumpkin from the farm.
I still think the same. I'm still from an idiot. I'm still a C student from Louisiana who threw rocks in a field. I don't know why the fuck any of this is working out.
Right.
However, if you keep getting invited to the room, quit arguing.
Yeah.
Quit telling the universe what you're worth if it's the one showing you up, telling you otherwise. And so, that accountability, that push, right? Like that, idiot voice what you're saying there, right? Like I realized a long time ago with experiences and what I'm into, it's, do you want to be a traveler or do you want to be a tourist? Because a tourist is there to collect the merit badge and take the photo and say, I went to blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
The traveler leaves pieces of him everywhere and inherits new ones, new practices. I add this, I get to take these parts and I integrate them into my life. Like same reason, like psychedelics are a tricky one, right? Because people love sharing this wild ass experience. But the real question is, how did you integrate it? How did it change you? What did you learn from it?
Let's dive right into that, because I think experiences is something that, as you just said, either you use it or you just collected the knowledge from it and don't apply it.
Right. And people, I mean, it's no different than just mentally jerking off, right? Like it's just consuming all these books or buying the book. But if you don't open the book and actually do any of the work, they're all useless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit, man. What if you actually understood the information of the books you currently own and never bought another one? Like I got a shit ton I've never even opened.
Yeah.
If I even just knew everything I've purchased, I have enough.
Sure. Yeah. And the funny thing for me is that I didn't seek out knowledge from other people until about, I would say 3 years ago. I was like, I'm not until I was 30, but I've worked for myself for the last 14 years.
Yeah. I got really lucky in that department, man.
And so like, I didn't get my first mentor, until I was like 31, I guess. And I lost so much time and money and energy. And I learned a shit ton, and like, I'll be the first to take action on something. And actually Paula came down the stairs 2 days ago and she's like, you know what I really envy about you? You take action on everything.
Well, it's because you don't have a fear of failure anymore.
I don't think I ever did.
Right. Well, because you understand in the same way success and failure work hand in hand, right? I have 100 opportunities of tiny successes today. In the same way, there's opportunities for 100 little failures.
Sure. And actually, I think they're both the same. It's just how you look at it.
And I can either get results that I don't want from the actions I have and continue to say, fuck that, I'm doing it anyway, and keep blowing past all these red flags saying, hey, this isn't giving us what we want. Or I change and have the success. And it's easy for people to write like that big fear. You talk to people about that like, I know mine, like if I put down my big fear, what it is that my warehouse with all my inventory is going to fucking burn down. The properties we own will burn down to nothing, to ash, to all my, our home with all of our things, vehicles, all of it up and gone tomorrow. And there's no recourse for any of it. That's some single decision I made.
Right. Like
evaporated.
The likelihood of that is
what would have to happen for that to happen? I need major fires in 2 states.
Right.
Like on the same day.
Nuclear warfare over
and
here.
So like, fuck man, like, why don't we skip pretending that's a real outcome? Because it'll take 2 years for that big failure that you think's on the horizon to really show up. In the same way it takes 2 years for that success to get here. And it's in the fight every day where you get to keep pushing toward it. It's the little ones that you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. Try it.
Yeah. I think it's funny. It's like, we're obviously in the fitness world, right? So 99% of the people we talk to are heavy in the fitness, and they might not be where they want to be in life. And I'd say this to, I have calls every day with coaches, right? Every single day. I say, man, if you'll just treat your business like you do your fitness, you'll get 1% better every day.
Weird.
Like,
That's
you
where
show
I
up
got it.
in the fitness world. Like, do you like are you satisfied with what you see in the mirror? No. But you still show up every day. You still go in and give it all you got. And you know that, hey, like, I didn't get as many reps as I wanted because you're pushing for more. But you're not going to do anything on your mental health. You're not going to do anything on your business. You're not going to do anything on social media. You're not going to do anything for your relationship.
And what sucks is like everything you're saying about the gym is beneficial to the mental health if you shift your perspective on it, that I'm doing this to continue to grow into the person I want to become, instead of I'm not who I'm supposed to be yet. Because I'm not who I'm supposed to be yet is acting out of lack. It's acting in that gap. It's always that distance that you're never going to fucking close in on. And if you're waiting for some destination like a fucking tourist that you're going to show up at, that's going to answer all those feelings you have inside about not being enough, I'll send you a world champion medal. It ain't it. Those are days, man.
You know, I think it's like after going to the gym every day with the hope of failing as much as I could, because that's growth.
Yeah.
I think that's what allowed me to like take
see
that
business the same way.
Yeah. Because it's like, you don't grow without failing. And I think I just translated that to everything in life, to where at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I've come to learn that I'll be okay. Like at the end of the day, like I could go get a job somewhere. Like I could go flip burgers.
I'm
like,
happy living in a
van, you know?
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm happy living in a van. I'm happily vagabonding and traveling with a lot less.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm quite there. I haven't let that side of my mind go. And it's funny because I'll tell this quick story. When we spoke at that event with Andrew, dude that lifts apparel, I was like, dude, I'm selling my coffee company. Like I'm planning on exiting and I kind of want to take a road trip. And I was like, but I have this like, this anxiety of like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to do? And you're like, well, you really need to think about like, where are you going to shower? And where are you going to do this? Where are you going to do that? And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, what am I going to do? And you're like, you're a alpha male, right? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And he goes, I think you'll fucking be okay. You got an iPhone. You'll be good. You'll figure it the fuck out.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I guess like I'm really overthinking this. And I think many people overthink everything. Yeah.
When just fuck around and find out, man. Like that's been one of the ones with our group that we use a lot. And it's the FAFO, man. Fuck around and find out. Like, dude, quit letting the assumption get in the way and fucking go have an experience and find out. Are you into it or not? If you're into it, lean in more. If not, cool. At least be able to say, I'm not into it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the group for a second. Not Dead Yet Life.
Yeah.
What made you want to start that group?
Oh man, we opened the doors here. So I built the facility that we've got here, kind of Not Dead Yet headquarters as it is. Dope, the gym. And it was really for us to train and be able to create content and get better at everything myself and our team wanted to. And pretty naturally, we found this opportunity of people wanting to be around. And so we opened the doors to community and let people in, and we don't charge people, and a place to train and hang out and kind of be in more conversations about stuff we're into. Self-development, self-improvement, using the gym as part of it. We don't really need to talk about it. It's just one of those things we all know we need. And so as that continued and realizing how it felt to see people switch on that fucking light bulb to realize they can do anything they want, that they're not held back by any of these limiting beliefs that they agreed to because of the environment they grew up in and the people they were around and what the community that they've been involved into. Maybe they didn't even choose to this point, but instead being able to look at the years in front of you with all your obligation, not to the years that you've already lived. Not saying, well, I can't do that. I've already spent 10 years doing this. Who cares? It's done. What do you want to do? What is you in 10 years? Like, what does the life you want in 10 years look like? What does the life in 5 years look like? What is the books that guy's reading? What are the actions that guy's taking? What are the community that he's around? Is he around complainers or is he around dreamers? Is he around problem solvers or is he around people that point out the why we can't get better? And so being able to offer that community and that feeling to people and give them some of the tools to be able to down-regulate, to be able to access talking to themselves, to figure out what it is they want, and to eliminate a bunch of the lies and stories about why they can't, especially long before they've ever taken an action. to prove they can't.
Yeah. So let's
Just
talk
helping
about
people break free of that.
Yeah. Let's talk about that jar you got behind you there.
Yeah, marbles.
Marbles. Big jar of marbles. 1612. This was a very interesting thing that I come to learn about you. One of the first things, and I won't tell the story, but what is 1612 to Matt Vincent?
So that's the number of weeks I have left to live when I turn 31. And how I came to that conclusion was the day before my birthday in 2014, my father passed away after an 11-month battle with pancreatic cancer. He died at 62. And it was just a very eye-opening awareness moment of I'm possibly halfway through my life. I believe I've stacked some cards to be better than probably 62 years old, but the truth is I don't know.
We don't.
The truth is I watched someone who had plans and had worked for 35 years and was getting ready to start living that next chapter of his life go from being totally normal to dead as shit in 11 months. And I know that that's a possibility of the ride. I know that that's one of the ways this thing can end. And if that's the case, the ride's got to be worth it. And for me, the ride being worth it is I want to make the most out of my life that I can, that keeps my fire. And it's through the experience and through community and being able to be around people that think with abundance and not complain or piss and moan. And so that's my memento mori. I filled the jar with marbles and I use it every Monday. I pluck one from it and have some time for reflection just to be intentional and say, how was it spent? Did I spend it in pursuit of my personal greatness, chasing things I love and around community and conversations that I'm intentional to try to find to make myself better? Or was it spent out of obligation, reacting to a bunch of things that have just found me? All the life's bullshit, to all the things that want to distract you and take your attention. Because either way, I throw the marble in the trash. It's not any more valuable on either side. And so what's the risk of chasing my dreams? I'm going to be dead at the end of the ride anyway.
I'm going to ask you a question you've probably never been asked.
Ooh.
Whenever you pull that marble, are there ever days that you just break down and cry?
Not anymore.
What was the switch that made you go from pulling it and being emotional to now gratitude?
I'm living my dream. And it's being able to have the awareness of that, right? Like, so as soon as you start on the course and you commit and you take radical accountability and you decide these are the decisions we're going to make and I'm going to be consistent, we're already in character creation of that person we're going to become. I'm not waiting to get anywhere anymore. I'm in it. And if things go south tomorrow, I spent today doing what I'm in love with. I spent it doing things to build my life, to build the community that I value. And when the time comes, the time comes.
So what does Matt love to do with his spare time?
It's back to experience. Whether that's being in the woods, doing something, camping, being in solitude, being able to go ride mountain bikes, do physical stuff, adventure. I'm up for adventure, right? A couple months ago, I took a 10-day motorcycle trip through California. And then in April, I went to Uganda with a buddy and spent 10 days working with one of the Batwa tribes. We go to Egypt in December. I went to South Africa in March and got to swim with sharks and penguins. And I don't want to read about it in a book. The same way whenever I was training, I didn't want to read about this lore of Westside Barbell or any of these guys in a book. I traveled and went. And I just showed up and was quiet in the corner. Better them to maybe think I'm stupid than prove them all right. And so, for me, right, I just want to spend as much of the remaining weeks of my life doing things that set my soul on fire.
What's something on the bucket list?
drive the Pan American Highway. That one's a big one. It's really weird that that's like a sticky note on the board, but man, there's a lot of parts to that one.
How long is that?
A little over 20,000 miles. It should take 8 or 9 months, like one way. And like, I need to buy a van, build a van, probably learn some Spanish, figure out documentation on like crossing a lot of borders. There's a lot of steps to that sticky note.
Yeah. I would say you probably got a year's worth of planning or
at
more.
At least, right? But every day when I find myself like, oh shit, I don't know what to do, I can take a Spanish lesson on my phone. I move one step closer toward that dream. I'm giving that guy more capability to say yes when the time comes, because right now I'm terrified of it. Because I know that experience, right? That 8 months that's going to take from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, all the way down to Ushuaia, Argentina. I'm probably going to have to bribe someone. I'm going to probably have an altercation with people. I'm going to have to fix a vehicle in another country that I don't probably speak the language. There's going to be problems.
Jeez.
And like, I know going into that sticky note that's what I'm choosing. You know, when Bonnie and I road trip now, one of my favorite parts of it is like, what's the first thing? What's going to be the thing that pops up that we get to solve? And look, I love it for the break from doing this and like figuring out this work and problem solving the business side of things and income and running a group and community, juggling all these different pieces from the brand to everything else. And whenever I get a chance to take a break, and let's say like a road trip or Burning Man or any of these things or Pan American Highway, I don't want a break that involves not having to solve problems, because I'll just think about all the shit that I have to do. This never ending list of problem solving lists that is my life goals of running this business and everything else. They're never going away. The list never ends. I get it. But doing something different, like say Burning Man, right? I can't order anything to solve any of my problems. I got what I got. And like, my problems become, how do we keep sand out of here? Like, that's a very different problem to solve for the day than I normally have.
Yeah.
And so while you're still giving your brain these things to figure out, they're a bit less long-term. And so they change perspective. They change your mindset. They put you in a different place. And it actually gives me a vacation from this problem solving.
You know, it's funny you
if
mentioned
I sit with my feet on the beach and try to drink it away, I'll just think about the 9 million things I'm not currently doing in support of my dreams.
Isn't that a bitch?
Yeah, but that's part of it. I quit pretending a long time ago that I like relaxing. I fucking don't.
Dude, I think this is also might fall into the high achiever piece. Turning off, I think, is the hardest thing for me to do.
Look, that's the hardest most people have, is being able to down-regulate. Especially
so
with, look at what we've, I think it's really crazy that we think a lot of the ADHD problem that we have isn't a causation from how we've grown up. Where we're constantly inundated with information. We're constantly getting new stimulus.
Yeah. It is the combination of, you know, that device we carry around with us all the time.
It's incredible.
It's a constant reminder of what you can do, what you need to do, or how I look at it, what I'm not doing.
And if what you're obsessed with is pointing out what other people do wrong, there's that option too.
Right.
And you can almost feel like it's your job to police it. No one gives a shit.
Yeah. And I think for me, the big flip for me is the day that I realized, hey, at the end of the day, you're just fine.
Just fine.
You just,
fine. And so that's where, like, for me, I got a chance to start exploring a bunch of different tools and back to mentors. Yeah, it was probably Kelly Starrett being one of the first guys I met that was really impactful. And so impactful that first time I remember really hanging out with him, leaving and just being like, oh, I need to be around whatever that is every so often. Like, I don't need to have a reason. I just need to go be around it.
Mm-hmm.
And so occasionally I would have trips where I went to San Francisco and I would hang out at the gym, not be in the way, but I just need to be around the energy of it, man.
Yeah.
I need to see it exist. And I continued to do that with a lot of people. I mean, that's how I got to spend a bunch of time around Aubrey. It's how I spend time around Rob and them. You know, for me, Rob's real impact on my life hasn't been through like a bunch of deep conversations like this, but it's been that I have the freedom to go live in his universe for a week and watch it operate and be like, oh, he gives a shit about his stuff more than I currently do mine right now. And like, it's an example, right? Like to be like, okay, that's what it takes. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then you also get around those people, right? And you realize they're not fucking magic. There isn't just some piece in them that you don't have.
Mm-mm.
They're willing to do
stringing together consistencies. What is
and
it?
being able to do it a long time. People don't realize Rob had 2 other apparel brands that no one gave a shit about. You know, when they were trying to travel like the car circuit and set up little booths at these meetups and swap meets and sell shirts.
Yeah. I find that the more you put yourself around people who have done it or push you to do it, the better. And I'll give a quick story. So I took the team out to an event and Rob was a guest speaker. And I was like, man, I want to host an event. And I've kind of talked about this with you a little bit. And I was like, but I can't host one like this. This is 700 people. Like, this is too much. And he was like, why can't you do it? You know how to market this thing. You can do this. And I'd posted a video the day before of me in a tank top, like making a piece of content. And he was like, what about that guy all jacked up with all the veins that you posted yesterday? That guy would fucking do this event. He'd do it. He was like, what do you need? People? He was like, I'll be here. Dan will be here. Who do you want? Just tell me. He was like, the rest is easy. And he was like, or you can have 35 people. You just let me know. And I was like, you motherfucker.
Well, I mean, look, and look, I don't necessarily always agree that quantity's the game.
Yeah. But he was like, his thing was like, hey, don't
retreats,
doubt yourself. Right? Just fucking go all in on it. Because I think he's a great example of all in.
I do too.
Like, of whatever the fuck you want to do, he's an example of it.
I agree.
His entire company from Pennsylvania to Montana. Cost a shit ton.
That alone was such an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
It's a terrible decision on paper.
Yeah, for sure.
Terrible.
In every facet.
But every
all
facet.
In on your own mental happiness is a great example of what he wanted to do. I don't care what it costs. He goes,
same reason that after 9
years,
years,
do it.
Same reason that after 9 years, I chose to change the name of my business. Because it's my fucking company.
That's right.
And if I want to change the name of it, I'll do that. And if it's going to have the life that I want it to have, there'll be a point that people say, wait, it was named something else before. Perfect. Same way, no one's aware that I really did the Highland Games anymore. It's one of the least fucking interesting things about me.
Yeah.
That's been one of my goals.
You know, it's funny because I'll see people at the gym or this, that, and they'll be like, you know, give compliments. Like, hey, man, you're in great shape. And I'm always like, you know, but if you knew me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, dude. That's one of the hardest things I have with strength training right now.
Yeah, dude, same. The fact that I'll never pick up 3 wheels on bench again is just like, you see other people do it and you're like, man.
It took me a weird piece, right, to like come around on that one. Because I'll never have another gym PR. Dude, I'll never, ever have another lifting PR. Ever. On anything. Maybe I'd have to make up some weird category. It would be like the USAPL or one of these, the way they run it, to where it's like,
they have a master's division.
Yeah, it's like master's divisions in knee sleeves on a Tuesday, squatting with kilos. But look, the overall like big purpose, if I look back to Highland Games and I look back to why I started lifting, like I got into lifting to build performance for sport. And then at some point I got interested in what my maxes are in weightlifting and powerlifting and strongman and whatever. I found out. I know those numbers. They'll never be more than they are. I found that metric. And I can sit here and play some game about, did I leave something on the table or any of this? But man, I know I went at my goals full speed.
Yeah, same.
The results are what they are.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
It's funny because we have the same mindset, two completely different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yours was about numbers and mine was about looks. And so you're like, man, I'll never hit that PR. And I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to look like that again. I'm never going to have those same shoulders or arms or back or whatever. Right?
Sure.
And so it's funny because we think the same things just in a completely different way, because you're like, I want to bench this much. I'm like, I want to look like I bench this much.
Well, the limiting belief that's caught us there is the same one, right? It's that this idea that I'm still beholden to be who I was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. That like, I still have to somehow represent a little bit today of what anything that guy was into.
You know, and the day that I truly realized and it like clicked for me, in 2018, I prepped for 5.5 weeks to do a show. And funny enough, it was probably like the best conditioning I had because I had the least amount of stress going into it.
Yeah.
And I'm backstage. And this is when it hit me. I literally said to myself, what the hell am I doing here? Because I know that I don't look like I used to. I didn't have the size. I know that my goal wasn't to win the show. I know that I'm not going to go to nationals after this show. I know that I'm not on a road to go pro. Why am I here?
Yeah. What was the answer?
Everyone else is like, yeah, I'm so excited to get on. I'm like, is it time yet?
Yeah, we done.
And I realized like, this is it. Like I didn't come off stage and go, man, let's go eat. I had soft serve ice cream and I was like right back on the plan. I just did not care. And it hit me. I'm like, this is no longer my mission. I know I quit. And now I know I'm double retired. I know that I'll probably never do another one because for what? To me, it's always been about
what new lessons
journey.
are there to learn from that from you?
Yeah.
For you? The same reason, like I remember saying that. So I won my last world championship in 2014. And so like I had 2 seasons after that where I finished second in the world in both. And I do remember it plenty of times, like sitting there, like, I don't imagine I'll compete as a master. I knew that I probably wasn't going to do this into my 40s. But also I wasn't sure that it had anything left to teach me. Like, I don't think I learned anything really extra having a 3rd world championship over the 2.
I learned in the journey of it, but the destination of it, where the trophies presented, I didn't learn anything other than this is not why I chose to do this. I chose to do this because I love the progress I saw in the gym.
The 20 years becoming my best at a thing was really valuable. The moment I became a world champion, not so much.
Isn't that
it's
weird?
Really nice to like for the resume to get into rooms, but like as far as networking goes and making friends and doing any of that, and that's one of them. Make friends. People are fucking bad at it. And so being able to meet a lot of the people that you and I have met through whatever this industry is, people aren't that hard to run into. Being someone they'd like to speak to a second time, that ain't because I won a world championship in the Highland Games.
Yeah. Speaking of networking, right? We've got next on your docket is you have the retreat in Montana exposure, right? Which I've been fortunate to be invited and speak at, which I'm super stoked to go do. Yeah, sold out. This is gonna be your biggest event yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, sorry for those that can't make it. It is sold out. Which we're super stoked about it. And I'm awesome to be a part of it. Like I can't wait. The next event you have, what do we got? What's on the docket?
So we've got 2. So we just finished up our men's reset, like here in St. Louis.
Yep. The hard reset, right?
Yeah. The hard reset. And what that's really about is like breaking that routine that you've been in and getting some distance to look at things from a different perspective and being able to build on that perspective with a group of people that are interested in the same things you are. And that allows you to kind of down-regulate, reassess things, and be able to look at like what needs to be done to get to where I want to get to, instead of all the things that I've just been doing on autopilot week after week after week, feeling stuck and feeling stagnant, and being able to let go of a bunch of that bullshit and figure out where's the direction we really want to apply our energy. And I think it takes a minute to step away to have that. You know, I know for me personally, right? Like training, I didn't train until catastrophic failure and then take a week off of the gym. I scheduled a deload every 5th week. So why don't I do something like that for the rest of my mental health in regards to my business? Why don't I every so often give myself 48 hours to get away, get in a new environment, feel some new things, think about new ideas, have new conversations, and then be able to return back still excited to do the work instead of, you wait until you're completely drained and out of battery and then take a week off and then you go back into the shitstorm.
I think that's what we call vacation.
That's what most people try to call vacation.
Where it's like, let me escape. And then it's like, shit, I got to go back to work on Monday.
But it's autopilot on vacation too. Like you're not really present, right?
Yeah.
And so I know whenever I'm on autopilot, man, weeks can just,
Dude,
especially in routine, especially
this
the
year
work,
has flew by.
disappeared, man. And I know that whenever I'm in a new environment with new challenges and new conversations and new people, time kind of expands for me. I know that like having 10 days in Uganda is something I'll probably talk about the rest of my life, but I can't decipher a ton that happened in the last month and a half of being home. We've made a lot of progress on a lot of things, but a lot of that looks like what long-term progress looks like. And that's showing up and doing the work every day. That's why I couldn't decipher many of my workouts as an athlete, because I'm not trying to be entertained. I'm trying to get to a thing.
You know what I like about retreats, and I think if you've never been to one, let me put it like this to you. You have something that you want to do, and if you're somebody that works out, great. Sometimes you go to the gym and you feel like it's just you, and you're out there with your own mission, and no one's on the same page. You're in a hoodie. You got this kid in the freaking pajamas. You got the me over in the corner staring in the mirror with a stringer on. And you have no one that's on the same page as you, and you feel like you're just in your own little world. When you go to retreat, everybody is wearing a hoodie.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the same place doing the same workout with the same mission. And it allows you to actually open up, experience things with people that are exactly where you are, so that you can take from other people and move forward and tackle the week in a different way. I've never come back from a retreat and go, that was a waste of time.
No,
Never.
Because the type of person that's coming out to our retreats, right, is especially the men's reset. We've got our next one in May, May 3rd through 6th here in St. Louis. And like the men that are coming out, most of which don't have friends. And this is now something we see a lot of, is that less than 3% of men have someone they can call.
A lone wolf.
Right. And I do think it's really important for progress in your life to get to a point of independence, that I'm going to do my thing, even though it doesn't agree with the other people I grew up with and all that type of shit, where I'd rather be on my own than be around energy I don't vibe with. But none of that's as good as being surrounded by energy you do vibe with. Being alone is great. It's fine. It's acceptable. It's better than wasting your energy on other people's bullshit. But man, when you align and get around a bunch of other people that are interested in progress and interested in these conversations, it's such a 10x amplifier to what you feel, that's why you have those things. That's why you all go get together and communicate and have these moments. You know, you're busy, I'm busy, our friends are busy, but that's why we plan a trip together to go get away from it and hear our other peers speak and compare notes, because none of us are in it alone.
Yeah. And speaking of like getaway and vacation, I'm super excited about the Colorado retreat.
Yeah.
This is something that's a little bit new. I don't think a lot of people do, but I think it dives into the exposure of it. But also, I think it's got a really cool, as a person that's got into hiking and outdoorsy, I think it's a really cool combo of growing and experiencing at the same time inside nature. Talk about the Colorado exposure trip.
Yeah. So Colorado exposure is our next kind of big, ambitious experience that we want to host for people.
Yeah.
For the last couple of years, we've worked with a company, Trova Trip, and they kind of help us plan out the logistics of everything. And they've been awesome. And so the Colorado exposure, we'll be sleeping in tents the whole time. We'll be moving campsite to campsite. We're going to go sandboarding on the dunes at the,
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're sandboarding. We're doing whitewater rafting. There's hikes in Black Gunnison Canyon, which for those who haven't seen that thing in Colorado is crazy. I didn't know that existed. We're doing an alpine hike. We'll go into Aspen and be around that area. And just this.
I mean, this is like a vacation or like one of those trip of a lifetime type of things, because like I've always wanted to like go and do, but again, I talked about earlier in the podcast, the planning, the itinerary.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
Like I struggle with all those pieces. Like
I'm not bummed that someone else is planning all this for me either. I just want to show up and do it.
I just want to show up and do.
Yeah. And that's exactly what this does.
Without having to plan, without having to know where my next meal is coming from. I just want to show up. And we have some friends that we travel with that they're like big on itinerary. And I'm like, hey, just tell me how much and where at, and I'll be there.
Right. Yeah, I'm much looser. And so like having these trips, I mean, that's what's helped with going to South Africa or Iceland with these groups of people. And I get how overwhelming like a big trip can be, that like, oh, I'd love to go camping and do all this, but I don't own a tent and I don't know where you camp and I don't know what to do in the woods. This fixes all that. Like we have a guide. It's not even like we'll have someone there who's actually a trained guide doing all the thing. Yeah. And so myself and Bonnie, we're going to facilitate some things like breath work. We're going to put together this rad kind of adventure kit from Not Dead Yet for everyone who comes, because it's like 10 people. Yeah. So like make it this special, really invested experience. I'm hoping based on the campsites, I think I'm going to end up driving out and being able to pack the saunas. Okay. So we'll be able to do some of that as well. Being able to
somebody's interested, where can they go find information?
Best place right now is through my stand store. If you just go to the Instagram, follow that link toward our Colorado exposure retreat. Okay. And we can get on a call, talk about it, and make sure it's a fit, because I really want to make sure this is something you're invested in. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got to do a rad trip in Alaska last year, and there were definitely people who showed up, didn't know we were sleeping in tents the whole time. And so it's worth explaining to people that like, yeah, we're going to be outside for 6 days.
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time you were outside for 6 days and didn't go into a building?
Yeah. And your Instagram, for people that know it, Matthew P.
Yeah,
Vincent.
Matthew P. Vincent. Yep. And yeah, I would love to chat. I would love the chance to see if that's a good fit for you for that or our retreat here in St. Louis. And then I know you and I'll start chatting and planning, you know, what's the continuation of this Montana exposure and Colorado exposure. I know we're both talking about Utah. Some fun options in the future. And it's been really fun, man. As I've continued down this path of coaching and mentorship, like I love the mental aspect of it, but it still comes down to these experiences. It's all these experiences are what have given me the information to be able to share, to be able to expose my own bullshit, to be able to see where my weaknesses and holes are. And if I don't have the awareness to want to change those and integrate something new into my life, then I'm going to stay stagnant. And I stay being that tourist. And I can't recommend people enough to lean into being the traveler, lean into the person that changes and gets adapted to the stress that they go seek out. Know that like I can stay outside for a week. Know that I'm good to do this. You know, when we went on that motorcycle trip earlier this year, I had a fear I got over. Now, I've traveled that way a lot, but that trip, I really just packed a hammock, and I've never done hammock sleeping. I'm afraid, like I've lied to myself for a really long time that with as bad as my knee and hip are, that I won't be able to sleep. I'll be crippled. That was fine. I was fine. I've limited myself over a lie for way too long. So now knowing that like I need to travel, I need a thing about this big and I can sleep in it. My options just opened up a lot.
Yeah. Well, I haven't slept in a tent in 20 years, so
it's the best. Dude, I love it. And it's not just the being in the tent. It's the being away. It's like actually finding quiet, not just from the noise of our environment, but from ourselves. And I think whenever we can take control of our reality, or when we can take control of our perspective, that starts to inform our reality of what it is. I mean, look, 5 days into Burning Man, there's no reality of sitting at my desk. It's not a useful thought.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in the first year Bonnie and I were together, we went on an 8-week road trip. We didn't know where we were going. We just took off. Figure it out. Where do we want to go today? And that freedom opens up a lot and allows you to, you know, experience different things and change your perspective, change your reality. And then you get to take those parts back with you and apply them to the rest of your life.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, even for somebody like myself, you really just have to let go.
Because it's discomfort, not danger.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll try to convince ourselves that it's
you're
danger.
just fine. It's just, it's just uncomfortable.
But because you, like what you said, right? Like, well, what do we do about showers or any of this? And because you haven't had the experience to be able to like, oh, they're not that hard to figure out. Like every gas station has showers. Also, there's a lake. Campsites have showers.
Yeah. Speaking of body water, I have one thing that I try to follow. And it's anytime I run across a big body of water, I got to get in it.
Yeah, well, I love that. I did that for a long time. I went and got in Lake Erie at one point. I swam in the north of Iceland.
Yeah. So if I go to the beach, I got to get in it.
Yeah.
If I go
Lake
to
in Patagonia,
lake, I don't care if it's frozen, I got to get in it.
Yeah. I
it's
dig
just
that.
super rad because when you go on these hikes and you're like, go to see this crystal lake, it's like, I don't care how cold it is.
You're talking
about
such a pattern stop, right? Like even if you hiked all day to get to that lake, that change of what you're currently doing from hiking to now getting in the water creates such a different memory point for you to refocus on and have and pull yourself back to the present moment of that experience.
Yeah.
Including the choice, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. It's an unreasonable thing to go do.
But it's so cool to be so free.
Like, I don't have to ask permission to go get in that lake.
Let me tell you something. If you go to work every day and you have on shoes that have thin, hard laces, where it's a polished, shiny, business casual shoe, you need to get in a fucking lake.
True that. Or cold plunge or any of it, right? And
any of it.
On like, all of our retreats, it
adds to the experience so much of like doing something you normally wouldn't do, because I find that the more that you try to act like a child, the more fun you're going to have in life.
Yeah, the inner child thing's a big one. That was one recently I journaled about, man, was if I was to get a chance to like go have a conversation with 10-year-old me right now and explain like what my life looks like. He's pumped. He's pumped. Like I work every day in a place that looks like a fantasy land of my brain. And then I travel and get to see these things and have these experiences. That kid's never going to ask me, are you rich? And the truth is, yeah, I am, man. I know I am. And that's experiences. The bank account ain't it. That fairy tale number that's in that account ain't got shit to do with it. In fact, when I die, I don't have kids. When I die, I hope there's about 75 cents sitting somewhere.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I've talked to you before. You're like, what's your retirement goal? To spend every fucking dollar I got?
Every fucking dollar. I had somebody ask me that question a while back, like one of those thought experiments. And it's like, if you were to get $10 million today, like what would be your move? And I was like, well, 1,131 weeks divided by 10 million. What's the number come out to?
Yeah, man.
Spend it, give it away, man. Make memories. In fact, if I lean into that and share it, no way I don't get a return on the investment.
For sure. I was talking the other day to somebody, and they're like, so what's your like goal with what you're doing? I was like, my goal to be able to call up 3 other couples and be like, hey,
let's go. Block
off these dates. Don't ask any questions. Just bring a bathing suit and show the fuck up.
Yeah, going to Bali. We're going to Japan.
Just an experience. I think
things are really so much more achievable than people want to believe they are.
Yeah. I think what's really cool about what it is that you're doing with these retreats is that you're actually doing that for people. They just don't see it that way. I get to just show up.
It's also a lot for me because I need those resets. Mm-hmm. This is part of the time that I build in for me to get refired up. Yeah, I'm not drained after hosting that last weekend.
Yeah.
I'm actually focused, recharged. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But dude, man,
come share in that deload with me and get your shit back set on fire so we can go after it.
Yeah, I always find, and this is funny, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. Every time I hang out with you, I care a little bit less.
I'll take that as the compliment it's supposed to be.
Because it's like, you're like, hey man, like just take a breath. Just chill out. And it's not from a place of like, be a piece of shit or be lazy.
It ain't lazy. Like, there's lazy in me. Don't go
just together. Take it in. Just be like, hey, dude, you're fucking doing it.
You're doing it.
Put a smile on your face as you do it.
Yeah. Like, I think for so long we've convinced people that wanting more means I'm unhappy. That like, well, if he's chasing something like that, that must be because there's in search of something he's missing. No. It's honoring how fucking rad my life is. That's why it gets my effort. My life's fucking incredible, man. Incredible. And I've purposely created it that way, and I've taken risks to do it. But to continue to honor that energy is by showing up every day and giving a fuck. It's not in lack. It's out of abundance for how fucking cool this is.
Well, dude, I appreciate your time, man. We're running up on an hour here.
Oh, good,
and,
man.
People can find you at Matt P. Vincent. Not Dead Yet, being the brand. Awesome community to be a part of if you're not. Super stoked. I know we have a few people that I personally know coming out to the events and can't wait to see you guys there. And again, if you want more information, or even just talking and learning about it, I'm sure Matt, open arms, myself included. So just let us know and point you in the right direction. But dude, I appreciate it, man.
Dude, love being here, man. So stoked to connect the way we have. It's meant absolutely everything, dude. I appreciate it. The work we do together on the business side, because man, the business side stuff that you're great at, like I'm dreams.
Well, I think it's a good trade-off because I help you in this way and you help me in this way.
That's it. Brotherhood.
Balance.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, huge.
My biggest takeaway podcast.